I was lying in a hospital bed in the dirty basement when Rick the surgeon appeared out of the darkness. He showed me a picture of the girl and told me that tomorrow I would look the same. This was my 12th plastic surgery. Soon my eyes were darkening from the usual anesthesia, and I passed out. In the morning, I woke up in my room and with difficulty went to the mirror. When I took off the bandages, there was a new face in the reflection, one in one, like the girl in the photo. Thank God this was my last case. I would start a new life and no more surgeries. I opened the closet to change, and in the corner sat my exact copy. The girl in the photo named Zoe, only bound and with her mouth taped shut. She was in shock. Sure, I looked like her crazy twin. She looked at me in horror, but I just took the clothes and locked the door. Then Rick, my plastic surgeon and part-time boss, came in. He showed the picture of the guy and said coldly that it was Dean. I had to disguise myself as his girlfriend, sneak into his office, and take the red folder with the documents. Rick gave me the phone of the girl who was sitting in the closet, the keys, and sent me to face. Half an hour later, I was in a taxi going to this Dean, and suddenly I saw myself in the rearview mirror and realized that after so many operations, I no longer remembered what my real face looked like. And then I started to remember how it all started. Since childhood, as long as I can remember, I've always been in the world of crime. My dad was a serious authority figure among the bandits, and he always took me with him on various cases. But when I was 16, my father was killed by some mobsters. Apparently, Dad owed the money that was lying at our house. I decided not to return them to the mafia. I had to live on something. I did deny myself anything, and the money quickly ran out. But soon the mafias demanded them back, and I had already wasted everything. I tried to keep a low profile, but I was being followed, and I realized that the only chance to live a normal life was to change my appearance. I found an ad for plastic surgeon Rick on the darknet, and a week later, we met. Rick seemed surly to me, and when he heard I didn't have any money, he was about to throw me out. But I panicked and confessed that the mafia was looking for me. Rick was silent, and I was afraid to move, but after a pause, he said he would help. I started to thank Rick, but he cut me off and said that he wasn't doing it out of mercy. He had a condition. He would perform plastic surgery on me, and I would have to impersonate other people. I recoiled. Why would he do that? Rick continued. He needed help with his business. Business? I was surprised. With a new face, I would break into different houses and steal, he added dryly. What? The mobsters got rid of my son. You'll have the same fate if you don't help me. Even though I didn't believe in fate, I had no other choice. I'd rather work for a crazy surgeon than fall into the hands of a mobster. We had been living together ever since. Rick gave me face-changing surgeries every month and sent me on missions, but he didn't pay me a penny of what he stole, so I took a percentage of the work myself. This was enough for me to buy clothes and restaurants. Rick still didn't notice I was stealing from him. I was happy with this life, but soon I began to notice that with each surgery, the scars on the skin took longer to heal, and I gradually began to go crazy, and I occasionally heard in my head the voices of the girls whose faces I wore. Then I knew it was time to stop. Last week, I'd been working for Rick for exactly a year. That same day, I went to him and begged him to let me go earlier because I was doing my duty honestly. There was a moment of silence, but then he nodded. Seriously? I asked, surprised and uncertain. Yes, perhaps you deserve your freedom. Rick answered, just one last case and we're even. I agreed without hesitation, of course. So very soon, Rick gave me plastic surgery. Suddenly, I heard a cry of an angry taxi driver. Apparently, I was too deep in my memories that I did not hear how we arrived. I paid and went out near the big house. Well, this was my last case. And then, freedom. My mission was to steal a red folder of documents from this house. Carefully opening the door, I found myself in a small hall. It was so quiet that I jumped when someone called out to me. It was Dean, the owner of the house, and he was cute, tall, and athletic. He hugged me and told me that there was a surprise waiting for his beloved in the living room. I let out a sigh of relief. He didn't suspect anything and thought I was his girlfriend. We sat down at the table. A romantic candlelit dinner was waiting for me there, and Dean was good at courting. But suddenly the smile faded from his face. He stared at my hand. Oh man, I forgot to cover my tattoo with my sleeve. I quickly hid my hands under the table, but my heart was pounding. I couldn't let Dean get suspicious, or I wouldn't get the red folder. Dean looked at me suspiciously. I lied about the tattoo being temporary, but I didn't think he believed me. There was no time to delay. I had to look around the house and find a folder. Honey, will you excuse me? I said and immediately got up from the table. Since the first floor was small, I assumed that the folder with the documents was somewhere upstairs. I carefully climbed the stairs and at the end of the corridor, I saw an old door. I listened for Dean, but it was all quiet. Then I tiptoed to that door. It was Dean's office. I crept over to the desk to find a red folder, but then it was like an electric shock. I noticed a police badge on the desk. Did that mean Dean was a cop? He must have seen through me by now. At that moment, I heard the stairs creak. Oh no. I barely made it out of the office before I came face to face with Dean. He asked incredulously what I was doing in his office. Trying to keep the tremor out of my voice, I said I had to leave immediately. After that, I ran as fast as I could down the stairs to the exit. I was so sick of pretending to be someone. When I went home an hour later, Rick was watching TV. I immediately started shouting that he should have said Dean was a cop. But Rick didn't even bat an eye. He got up from the couch, came close to me and said that if I wanted freedom, I would get him a folder. A lump rose in my throat. Rick could expose me to the mafia at any second, or worse, leave me as a slave forever. I took a deep breath and went to my room. I needed to figure out where the damn folder was. I opened the closet and told Zoe that if she didn't tell me where Dean kept the files, I'd kill her and blame her boyfriend. Zoe begged me not to touch Dean and stammered out that he kept all the files in the desk drawers in his office. Man, why didn't I look in there right away? I taped Zoe's mouth shut and closed the closet. I would get this file out tomorrow and finally get rid of Rick's slavery. In the morning, I was woken up by a call. It was Zoe's phone. I saw Dean's name on the screen. Damn. Dean asked anxiously if I was alright. Why did I run away last night and not come to sleep? Stammering, I apologized and lied that my friend had poisoned herself yesterday. I had to stay with her. I waited tensely for Dean to respond. What if he was trying to trip me up? But Dean asked sympathetically if his help was needed. That was close. I said it was alright and I was going home. I took a sleeping pill and called a taxi. The plan was that I would put Dean to sleep and calmly take out the folder. When I arrived at Dean's, I found him on the stairs in the hallway. He looked like he hadn't slept all night. Dean asked suspiciously when I found a friend, since I had just moved to the city. Heck, I quickly came up with an excuse and immediately offered to watch a movie together. Dean smiled and agreed. While he was choosing a movie, I went to the kitchen to make tea. I was just taking the sleeping pills out of my pocket when my phone rang in my pocket. It was Rick. I decided to call back when Dean was asleep, stirred the powder in the tea, and went into the living room. But Dean was already asleep on the couch. Apparently, he really had been waiting for me all night. I wasted no time in rushing to his office. I needed to deal with everything quickly. While I was going, I decided to call Rick back. What do you have? I'm on the case. But at his words, I froze in place. Zoe ran away. I panicked. But Rick told me to pack up, find the documents, and get out of there. She could show up here at any time, and then Rick and I would be screwed. My new life was at stake. I decided to fight to the end. In the office, I rummaged through all the desk drawers and finally found a red folder. And then I heard the door creak. Dean must have woken up. I decided not to hesitate, and hiding the folder under my jacket, was already going down to the door. Then I saw Zoe sitting next to Dean on the couch. We looked like twins. Dean stared at us in shock. "You can't fight the fate, honey," she whispered to me. But while Dean was recovering from the shock, I ran for the front door. I jumped out on the road, stopped the taxi, and miraculously, I was in the car. Locked the door and shouted to the taxi driver, "Let's go!" He hit the gas and we drove away. When I got home, I immediately threw a red folder on Rick's desk. He only coldly replied, "You were free." I was so happy, but now I needed Rick's help again. I got down on my knees and begged him to make me a new face, for the last time. Any face. Just to get away from Dean. He was a cop. He wouldn't leave me so easily, and I wanted to start all over again. Rick took pity on me and took me to the basement. On the morning after my surgery, my face was terribly sore, but even under the bandages, I was smiling because now this whole nightmare was over. I took off the bandages, but when I unwrapped the last one, I saw a snub nose and plump lips in the reflection of the mirror. A painfully familiar face. Who was it? No, I recognized my real self. I just froze in horror. Why did he set me up like this? Now I would be found and torn to pieces by the mafias who hunted my father. Suddenly the phone vibrated. A message came. I know that you stole money from me. It's time to pay your debts. You can't fight the fate. And the signature, Rick. My legs gave out and I fell on the couch, right on top of the remote control. The TV turned on and I heard a familiar voice. A fateful accident helped me catch a criminal. Dean replied to the reporter. I turned up the volume and stared at the screen. What? Next to Dean was Rick. The cuffs on him. Dean said that he had been chasing Surgeon Rick for many years, but in the end, his girlfriend helped him catch the criminal. My thoughts were confused. Tears welled up in my eyes from despair. Perhaps fate really exists, and you can't fight it, and soon the mobsters would find me. At that moment, there was an insistent knock on the door. I took out my phone and wanted to call the police, but I just looked at my reflection in the mirror and said to myself, let fate decide for itself. Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you.